Imagine you collapse on a busy street. Hundreds of people walk past you. No one stops. No one calls for help. No one even slows down. You might assume those people are cruel, indifferent, broken somehow. But the real answer is far stranger. The real answer says something deeply unsettling about you, about every person you have ever trusted, and about the hidden machinery running inside every human mind. This is the story of the bystander effect. And it is not a story about bad people. It is a story about what happens when a perfectly normal brain faces a perfectly ordinary crowd. Cast your mind back to March 1964. A young woman named Kitty Genovese is walking home in Queens, New York at around 3 in the morning. She is attacked. The assault lasts over 30 minutes. Reports at the time claimed that 38 neighbors witnessed the attack from their apartment windows. 38 people. And not one of them called the police until it was too late. The story ignited a firestorm. Psychologists, journalists, and everyday people asked the same question with the same disbelieving horror. How? How could 38 human beings watch someone die and do nothing? Two researchers at Columbia University decided to find out. John Darley and Bib Latani were not satisfied with the easy answer. The easy answer was that the witnesses were cowards, or monsters, or simply did not care. Darley and Latani suspected something more interesting was happening, something built into the structure of groups themselves. So they ran an experiment. In 1968, they brought participants into a room, one at a time, and told each person they would be having a discussion with other students through an intercom system. What the participants did not know was that the other voices were pre-recorded. The experiment was never about the discussion at all. Partway through, one of the recorded voices began to fake a seizure. It was distressing. It sounded real. And here is what Darley and Latani found. When a participant believed they were the only other person on the call, 85% of them got up and sought help within 60 seconds. But when participants believed there were 4 other people on the call who could also hear the seizure, that number dropped to 31%. Same emergency, same sounds, same stakes. More people in the room, and suddenly the chance that anyone would act collapsed. The researchers named this the bystander effect. But naming it was only the beginning. What is actually happening inside your brain during these moments? Why does adding more people make you less likely to act? The answer starts with something psychologists call diffusion of responsibility. When you are alone and something goes wrong, the entire weight of that situation lands on you. Your brain calculates fast. Someone needs help. No one else is here. That means the responsibility is yours. You move. But put 10 people in that same situation and something shifts. Your brain, without your permission, begins to spread that weight around. It tells you that surely someone else has already called for help. It tells you that someone more qualified must be handling it. It tells you, softly and convincingly, that your individual responsibility in this moment is actually quite small. You share it with the crowd, and so does everyone else. And so no one carries it. There is a second mechanism at work, and it is even more powerful. Psychologists call it pluralistic ignorance. Here is how it works. You see something happen, and you are not immediately sure how serious it is. So you do what humans have always done. You look around at other people to get a read on the situation. You are checking their faces, their body language, their expressions. You are asking yourself silently whether they look alarmed. But here is the trap. Every single person in that crowd is doing the exact same thing. Everyone is looking at everyone else for a signal. And because no one wants to overreact, no one wants to look hysterical or foolish in public, everyone puts on a composed, neutral expression. Everyone looks calm. So you see a crowd of calm-looking faces, and your brain concludes that the situation probably is not serious. The smoke is probably just steam. The person on the ground is probably just resting. The argument happening across the street is probably fine. You are reading the crowd. The crowd is reading you. And between you, you collectively convince each other that nothing is wrong. Stanley Milgram, the social psychologist famous for his obedience studies, also studied bystander behavior in New York City. He found that in a city where constant stimulation overwhelms the senses, people develop what he called urban overload, a kind of learned narrowing of attention. Your brain, unable to process every sound, every person, every situation competing for your notice, learns to filter aggressively. It marks unfamiliar strangers as background noise. It trains itself not to engage with every anomaly, because in a dense city, engagement with every anomaly would be paralyzing. This was not cruelty Milgram was describing. It was adaptation, a survival strategy. The same brain that protects you from sensory overload is the same brain that walks past someone who needs help. Now think about what this means for the Kitty Genovese story. For decades, her death was held up as proof of human indifference, a symbol of the cold heart of modern city life. But researchers who revisited the case, including Catherine Pellinero and others who examined the original court records and police files, found that the original reporting had been dramatically exaggerated. Some witnesses did call the police. The facts were far more complicated than the initial headlines suggested. But here is what is interesting. The myth spread anyway. The story of 38 passive witnesses became one of the most repeated narratives in 20th century psychology precisely because it matched something people already half believed about themselves and each other. It felt true. And the reason it felt true is that the underlying psychology Darley and Latané uncovered is real, even if the specific story was distorted. The bystander effect is real. It has been replicated hundreds of times across different cultures, different settings, different types of emergencies. The numbers shift slightly, but the pattern holds. More bystanders, less action. So what actually breaks the spell? The answer is specificity. Researchers have found that the bystander effect collapses almost entirely when someone in the crowd is singled out directly. Not a general call to anyone. A specific person. You in the red jacket. You standing near the door. Call an ambulance right now. The moment one person is made to feel personally and individually responsible, the diffusion disappears. The weight lands on them alone. And they act. There is something ancient in this. For most of human history, your group was small. 10 people, 30 people, a band of relatives who all knew each other's names. In a group that size, diffusion of responsibility barely existed. If someone was hurt, the crisis belonged to everyone personally. You knew who that person was. You could not look away and tell yourself someone else would handle it because you could see all the others from where you stood, and none of them had moved either. Your brain evolved for that world. The problem is that it now lives in this one. It inherited social software built for a tribe of 30 and now runs it inside subway cars carrying 300 strangers. The machinery still works. It just gives the wrong output when the inputs change. This is why knowing about the bystander effect changes things. There is solid evidence, including work by researchers like Arthur Beeman, that simply teaching people about the phenomenon makes them measurably more likely to intervene in emergencies. Knowledge disrupts the automatic process. It inserts a moment of conscious override between the unconscious calculation and the final behavior. The crowd does not have to win. Here is what that means for you. The next time you are in a situation where something seems wrong and no one around you is reacting, the crowd's silence is not information. The calm faces around you are not evidence that everything is fine. Every one of those calm faces is reading your calm face for the same false reassurance. Someone needs to break the loop. And now that you know this, that someone can be you. Not because you are braver than the others, not because you are a better person, but because you understand the trap, and understanding it is the first step out of it. Tonight, if you were on that busy street, collapsed and invisible to the crowd, what you would need is not a hero. What you would need is one person who knew that the silence of a crowd proves nothing. One person who understood that no one acting is not the same as no action being needed. 38 witnesses, none of them monsters, all of them running the same ancient social software that lives right now inside your skull. The question is whether you let it run on autopilot.